What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions in Dungeons and Dragons. And joining me this week is Jasmine Bhullar. Hello!
Hello!
How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I am so excited to be doing this show with you, and we're going to be talking about Certainty, a lot of fun stuff. But if there's folks in the chat who don't know who are you for those fine folks who do not know?
Yeah, hi, hello. Nice to meet you. I'm Jasmine, that bronze girl Bhullar. I'm a Twitch streamer. I'm a dungeon master. I'm a writer. I'm a game developer. I'm working on a couple of video games right now, but they're all NDA, so you'll have to.
The NDA life.
So they're probably like 4 years. Don't say what it is. The video game development cycle. But in the interim, you've probably seen me on D&D Beyond, DMing Battle for Beyond, or on Dimension 20, DMing Coffin Run, and yeah.
That was Coffin Run was one of those shows that I was like, I feel like I've got a vibe of what's going on here, but I also have no idea what's going to happen here.
Yeah, it was my I wasn't able to pitch a Wacky Racer season, so I tried to meet somewhere in the middle, but someday they're gonna let me come back and do a Wacky Racers meets Mario Kart type of thing, and it's gonna be great.
And I feel like the Dimension 20 art team would have fun with that set for a track.
Yeah,
you know?
we would go crazy. Cowards!
We're here today to call Dimension 20 cowards, talk about Certainty Dran and all the awesome things Jasmine's doing. But I do want to say that we are live for this episode. So during the middle of it, we will be doing a quick giveaway. So keep an ear out for that. You can also put questions into the chat with question : and then your question, and our awesome mod Gabe will grab it. And we'll talk about those at the end of the show. But Jasmine, to start things off, how'd you get into D&D?
I got into D&D by getting into Mouse Guard first.
Oh.
Yeah, like my first experience with D&D, as a lot of people have this, wasn't great. And I was like, oh, I don't think this is for me. And then I started up a game of Mouse Guard at this comic book store I used to volunteer at. And it was super fun. And from there, I kind of worked backwards to D&D, playing like every other system other than D&D along the way.
Really?
Yeah.
You're like, here's put all these ones here, and then like, okay, then there's this one here. We'll try that one out.
I attributed my negative first experience to, I was like, well, that's just how D&D people are. So I'm gonna play Mouse Guard and I'm gonna play Vampire the Masquerade. And then I realized, oh, there's like not nice people in every fandom. So, I think your mic is a little quiet though.
Oh, is it quiet? See, and before we were talking about, I was asking about yours.
It's like I can hear it. Otherwise, I would have warned you.
Oh, well, chat. Hopefully that fixes it for you. I just put it all the way up, and if it's too loud now, well, you asked for that. So actually the first thing that like I saw you on streaming wise was Vampire, and I've seen you do quite a bit with it. What is it about Vampire the Masquerade that just draws you to it?
I just love the world of darkness. It's not even specifically vampire. I love Mummy.
I forgot about Mummy.
Mage. I'm like fucking love Mage. Like, that's one F-bomb I'm allowed. That's my favorite. Like, it's so much fun. Changeling, like it's just very much my ish, my bag. I've always been a little sort of like closeted, depressed goth kid that doesn't outwardly manifest all the time, but it's on the inside. So I think it was just like the lore and the setting, and I really wanted to. Because I feel like a lot of times systems are there for a power fantasy.
Yeah.
And I feel like Vampire the Masquerade is the opposite. Like you want to hold on to the human side of you, not embrace this beast side of you. And so most of the games have that sort of like emotional aspect to them in the World of Darkness umbrella. And so I just had so much fun. We have a game with the boys now.
I haven't got a chance to watch it. Jerry talked about it last week, and I can only imagine that is a wild ride.
Yeah, the Ack Inc. crew taking a swing at VTM has been one of the great joys of my life. And it's actually how I started role-playing with Penny Arcade. Was I started on Seattle by Night, and then Jerry basically adopted me, and I So that's kind of how it started, but yeah.
And that game was run by Jason Carl, right?
Yeah,
Oh
the
man,
godfather of Vampire the Masquerade. Mm-hmm.
Strahd
Yes.
himself. Well, you mentioned being adopted by Jerry there, so I feel like that's a good segue to talk about Certainty. Who is Certainty Dran?
Well, Certainty is Omen Dran's daughter. She is the heiress to Ack Inc. and I believe the first documancer, as it exists in the official D&D compendium.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and she's actually created by Jerry Holkins, and somewhere along the line, that crown or that scepter, I don't know what it is, was handed down to me to continue that legacy and put my own spin on it.
So that was actually like the thing that I like really wanted to talk about with this, because I wasn't aware of that. The C team was like the blank spot in my knowledge of Ack Inc. And so the first time you came on stage was the first time I knew anything about Certainty. And so I thought that you had made the character and everything like that, but finding out that you just kind of stepped into the role of it, how was that? Like being approached by, hey, I want you to play this NPC that I've had.
Yeah, it was scary because Ack Inc. was the first actual play I ever watched, and it was the actual play that got me into D&D.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very much aware of the legacy I was stepping into, and I think coming into it, the only reason I even said yes was because I knew that Jerry would let me, like, trusted me enough, because, like, I don't know, we have writer brain. We both have like that, we share one brain cell moments, and you'll see it on stage a lot. It's actually freaky where we'll say the exact same thing at the exact same time. If you go back and watch us every time on stage, this has happened like so many times, it's ridiculous. And in this last live show at PAX West, it happened, I think we counted like 4 times and say the exact same thing. So because I knew that we were like kind of in simpatico like that, I trusted him and he trusted me, and that's why I said yes. But otherwise, I don't know that I would have, like, let me take over a character you've created. That was really just because he's a very good friend, and that, oh god, that was my Discord sound. Did that come through the mic?
Yeah, it's okay though. I think everyone here is used to them. Everyone just checked their notifications. It's okay. Even I was just like, oh, that was mine.
This is horrible. Let me turn on.
No, you're fine.
Okay, we're
but
good.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because last week when I was talking to Jerry, he said like the same thing about like those moments where both of you have like the same joke or the same sentence there, and how well that works between not just the two of you, but like for Omen and Certainty. Like it's just that chemistry on stage that works so well for the two of you. But he did mention and that you got to, like, when you took on the character, he was like, okay, anything you want to change, what was it that you added to Certainty?
There are a couple things. So we had like one meeting, and in it, like I said, we were on the same page, like basically right from the get. And so we both mutually decided, I was like, I'm not really interested in doing a antagonistic relationship. Like I have a really close relationship with my dad. I could do it, but I'm good friends with you, and I would like to have, I think you so rarely see an adventuring party with like a father and daughter together. I was like, I think they should have a good relationship. I don't think Certainty hates her dad. I think like her dad is her world, And she's actually, you were talking about King of the Hill before we came on.
Yeah.
To me, it was like a Connie Supanusim phone type of situation where I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like she is like, my dad is a genius and he's built all of this, and I have to meet the mark, and I have to be just as smart and just as on top of it. And I think like my big concern coming into it, one of the first things that changed was like her appearance. Because I think originally Certainty is described as having like red hair and all of that. And I was like, well, it can't really work for me.
Yeah.
I mean, we could try. Probably look like a mutant, but so instead we kind of retconned some stuff where it's like, well, maybe Certainty is like a perfect in between of her dad and her mom. And so we were like, okay, yeah, maybe her mom's like this really tall, like, half celestial, served as an avatar of Timora goddess. Maybe she does have like really angular features and she's dark skinned. And that's why Certainty is like this, like, this like blend of the two. And so I added that in, and then I think the other part I added in was the idea of, because one of my first jobs when I moved to America from Punjab was tutoring in a high school. And one thing I realized about a good chunk of teenage girls is they can mean really well and actually say like some really heinous shit. And like not really meaning to, like not even trying, they just don't really understand like the impact of words all the time. And so they'll say things that you're just like, oh, okay. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, you always have the most interesting outfits, like in this like kitschy, thrifted way. And you're like, oh, okay, thank you.
And it makes you go home and think for a while. And
yeah. Or they'll be like, oh my gosh, it's so like, you see, everybody cares about brands. And I just kind of embrace that you don't own anything that's like, that's like a brand or a designer. Like, I love that you'll just carry a Target purse and not be say that stuff to me. And I would just be like, thank you. They're like, no, it's a serve. And I would just be like, thanks. As okay. You just like clocked my Target purse, but okay. I don't know. And so I kind of brought that aspect in of like her being a bard that is a debate bard who is the girl in class that's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm going to be the future Madam President of the United States. Like, you all know that girl. And I wanted that because she has had the best of everything growing up. She's the apple of her dad's eye. And, she's not evil. She just has an edge to her. She has a businesswoman's edge to her. And so I kind of brought that forward. I don't know if Jerry originally intended her to kind of be like the way she motivates people with bardic inspiration can sometimes like make them seek therapy afterwards. But
anytime you give bardic inspiration to Evelyn is just it's one of my favorite things.
It's usually like, you don't have to be smart, you're pretty, and you can fix to your role. It's always something like that. And the thing is, I truly don't think she's trying to be mean. And there are I've gotten some comments. I read the YouTube comments. I've seen some comments that are like people that just can't handle her. And I'm like, you have to understand, she was raised by Jim Dark Magic and Omen Dran. They're not the nicest people in the world.
No, I think Certainty fell perfectly in step.
Oh my gosh. Hi, everyone. She's going to be like, oh, like, sorry, we don't reimburse here and we don't do like, it's cute.
Did you bring an invoice?
Yeah. It's cute that you're keeping your receipts. I don't know why, because that wasn't part of your contract, so you can make a paper hat out of them, I guess. And so I think like now when you have the three of us on one side of the table, it is like the axis of evil. Like,
I did like that in the first episode of series 2 when you and Mike were on the same side. It's like, oh, Jared and I've never been across. I feel like enemies now.
And it's weird because I started on Seattle by Night, and so I'm used to sitting next to Mike, like, but then on Ack Inc, I always sit next to Jerry, and so I was like, whoa, this is like this is such a weird vibe. Like, things change. Table placement matters. People say it doesn't. It does.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
I think I end up feeling about my spot at the table like I did about my seat in like high school or something like that. Like someone said, I'm like, but that's like where I sit though. Like I got that's where I'm comfortable.
For me, it's like less about where I sit and who I sit next to, which probably seems cliquish, but it's definitely one of those things that's like, but how am I going to chuckle and like do our little things if my seat partner isn't here? I guess it is the same. There were people I liked to sit next to in school, so that makes sense.
you've awoken a memory I have where I used to run D&D games at a Barnes and Noble, and it was mostly kids, and like legitimately one time I had to separate two brothers. I'm like, we're like, nothing is happening because you all are cracking inside jokes, so we're just gonna just opposite side of the table. There you go.
Probably separate me and Jerry, but
I don't think
did it for the series. They were probably like, okay, you two can't sit together. I'm like, putting me next to Mike ain't any better.
that was a clause for Jerry or for Jeremy and Chris to come back.
Separate those two, yeah.
So how many games have you done live with them? Now you've done quite a few of them.
Yeah. I started at PAX West, and it was like a 15-minute like walk on towards the end of the episode to introduce the characters. So I think like Unplugged was like the first official game. And yeah, so I think it's been like a year and a half.
I think it might have been longer. I think wasn't it like 2021?
Has it been that long?
Time is a pizza. But anyway, what I was getting to was like Certainty has gone through like some changes between that first walk on part and now going into series 2. What has that character progression been like?
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was. It's weird. It's weird. Sorry, that sentence started out so awkward. It's because it takes time for me to feel out a character, and then things happen in the game, and that fuels that even more. And so I think coming into it, I was almost unsure of like what was allowed or what wasn't allowed. I felt like a guest in a lot of ways, where I'm like, oh, what's it? Because there's a lot of times I've been a guest on a show, and the audience, if it has an established audience, because that happens a lot, you'll have the audience will automatically be antagonistic to the guest and be like, why is she talking so much? Brennan can't get a word in edgewise because that girl keeps talking. So you have that moment of like, oh, I don't want to take up too much space, you know? I want to like mind my P's and Q's and not take up too much space, especially because I know everyone is screaming that, you know, Viari isn't here and that they got brown girl instead. Like I said, I read the YouTube comments.
Yeah.
I will give up my seat for Patrick when he comes back. I'm a fan too. But like knowing that, I was like, I would have moments where like I feel like I was still worried about like talking too much or like taking the lead on something or doing something because I didn't want to interrupt the game. So I think the biggest change has been like just really accepting that I'm not a guest. And that I'm allowed to do things. And I feel like I really hit that stride with Last Unplugged, when Certainty like sort of burns down the company by accident, trying to save Bobby. And so I think that was like the first, I felt like I hit my stride there where I was like, you know what? I'm a part of the story too. And I'm going to do what feels true to character. And if that's taking up too much space, deal with it. And it ended up being like one of the most emotional moments I've ever had in D&D.
Oh, wow.
Rolling the die to see how far back in time we go and rolling the exact number of like how old the Ack Inc. was on the anniversary of Ack Inc. That was like, it was
chills.
Yeah. I cried, and it was like one of the coolest things. And it's like a live show, unedited. No one could have scripted that. They weren't weighted dice. It was just one of those moments where I was like, God, I love this game.
Yeah.
You know? And I've done some cool things in my D&D career, but I think that one like kind of sits on its own in a lot of ways. And so for me, that was like where I was like, you know what? I hit my stride. Finally. Yeah.
I will say that is wild to hear because like I from a viewer standpoint, like I felt like you had Certainty down like within like the second time you were on, and like the rapport that you had with everyone was just incredible. Like genuinely, I was sitting there like when I'd see a new episode was posted up, I'm like, oh, I hope Jasmine's in this one. Like,
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Also, I do want to say, Lurking Writer in the chat did say, "Don't give up your C. I want to see VRE and Certainty in an adventure," and I second that. I want some Pat Rothfuss BS with some Jasmine BS.
Well, and I only recently got to work on something with Will Wheaton for the first time. And they were so cool and so sweet. And despite me being like a little bit of a fan, and so I would love to see that happen sometime too. Like I would, like it was a moment where I was like he recognized my Ack Inc. dice bag. I was like, I know that, and I was just like, come back.
Okay, that makes me even happier. So I didn't tell this beforehand, but like I do the writing for Idle Champions. I put an AOFL joke in Certainty's equipment flavor text.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. No, I would kill to play in a game with AOFL. That's like one of my favorite characters.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I also think Certainty and AOFL would get along.
Yeah, just as long as you didn't have any acid spells or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't think I do. I think we would get along.
Hey, there you go. So in series 2, you even brought this up on the show that you now have the Divination Wizard stuff. Because you were just Certainty was just a bard for most of the episodes, right?
Fighter bard.
Oh.
Yeah, which is like funny. There's a College of Swords or College of Valor bard fighter multi-class with like a thrown weapon specialization. So she threw daggers.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how are you liking the Divination Wizard? It's the one class that I'm sitting off to the side. I'm like, I kind of want to play it, but I'm unsure.
It's friggin' amazing. I love it. I love it in Baldur's Gate as well. It's so amazing in that game. I'm actually playing Certainty in my Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So in my mind, it's an aged up version of her. But yeah, it's like super fun to play around with that. I remember I talked to Crawford about the idea because I was like, I feel like maybe going through this like temporal time shift, like, you know, may have activated something in her, especially because that's like the family business is like kind of, you know, being able to tell the future a little bit or mess with the future. And so it felt natural. And it's amazing now because it's super fun to just be like, actually, before you roll, that's a 19. It's my favorite thing in the world. I never get old to be like, the monster swings and that's a 4. It feels so good. And especially like when I roll low, that's my favorite because then you can cast spells that you normally are like, the monster's going to make the saving throw. But when you have like a 3 and a 2 loaded on the portent die, you know. And so I actually made a TikTok video talking about, oh, if you're embroiled in melee combat and, you know, a creature, you know, you're trying to hit a creature, you don't do so at disadvantage, like, you know, if you use a cantrip. And so many people in the comments were like, yeah, but they always make the save. And I'm like, unless you're a Divination Wizard.
That literally just sold me. Like, next character I make is a Divination Wizard. Because that's the thing. Like, I'm
playing 4D chess over here, Trevor.
You really are. Because, like, the dice hate me. That's why I'm a DM. Like, I roll 4 1s back to back, you know? And so, like, at one point, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to play a wizard, so they have to roll. But the problem is, all of the DMs I play with roll really high.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part, is when you roll the portents, it's always good.
Yeah.
If it's a high roll, it's good. If it's a low roll, that's even better. My favorite is a natural 1 on a portent roll. That's my favorite, because it's just like, oh, okay, I'm going to keep this in my back pocket. And next time I try to, like, heat metal, this is gonna suck for you, you know?
Oh man, my dice curse could be the bane of DMs now.
Yeah, it's super fun. And if DMs have that rule where, like, oh, if you get, because some DMs have like that homebrew rule or house rule of if you roll a 1, you drop your weapon. I was fighting like this boss that like empowered their sword and all of this and spent an action doing it. And on the next turn I went to sing, I was like, that's a natural 1. And I was like, do they drop their weapon? Like, yes, they do. I'm like, they're going to have to pick it up. And then do that whole shindig again where they imbue it with thunder power or whatever. So I definitely love playing a Divination Wizard. It's my favorite thing. My only issue is like figuring out a convenient point to be like, also I roll my portent die. Because sometimes I'll roll them without announcing it. And Jerry called me out on stage this time. He's like, you just rolling dice over there? And I was like, yeah, I can tell the future.
I'm just playing my class over here, okay? Yeah, I have played with DMs though that do the like you roll one, you drop the sword. And to illustrate how much I roll ones, one of my fighter characters bought a sword leash. It was like the Wiimote little leash thing, and like that's how much he was dropping his sword.
A Wiimote leash for a sword is crazy, but I'm kind of here for it. Like,
yeah, it did help out because I still kept rolling them.
Velcro, maybe glue.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if I got the curse sword that I could never let go, that would have been the best thing for him.
That would have
honestly.
been the amazing thing. Yeah, like you want that at that point.
So we've talked about series 2 a little bit here. I mean, it's we're only 2 episodes into it being out, but like without spoilers, like how was it? How was that experience?
Oh man, it gets so emotional.
Oh,
I'm not gonna spoil anything, but like, okay, so like I was saying, I'm an Acking fan.
yeah.
For people that are fans of Jim and Omen's relationship, this season's so good.
Ooh.
It really is. I think in one of the accounts payable episodes, Stringer asked me, like, what is this season about? And I think I said, I was like, this season's about Omen and Jim. And I was excited for that because, you know, Jim Dark Magic is the greatest wizard of all time.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, I don't know, seeing them kind of reacquaint with each other. It's fun. It's fun. It's sad that Jim thinks he's in a movie.
That has been one of the best running bits right now, where it's like, okay, how do we convince Jim that what just happened was on a movie?
Like every single time we're like, well, this is a movie. This is all fake. It's not real. And it's funny. But I think it also illustrates like how desperate Omen is to not like lose, like mess things up with this version of Jim. And so it's great. And I also like this series because I feel like it's a great jumping on point for people that, because I see that question all the time where people are like, where do you start with that Inc? It's like 15 years old. And so it's great to have like a series where it's like, actually, you can kind of just jump on here and kind of know what's going on because the entire show is structured that way. And so I love it. I really like the series.
How was it swapping DMs like every episode?
Oh man, I loved it. I think it's because I I think people are afraid of Perkins.
Yes.
Which
yes, just straight up yes.
Yeah. Like Perkins is how do I describe it? Perkins will put you through things that you're like, oh God, this is happening to my character now. But what they don't understand is that Crawford is an emotional terrorist. So I don't know which star sign knows that. I'm a Cancer, and I'm like,
hey, me too.
Yeah, maybe he's a Cancer. I'm gonna ask him sometime.
Oh my God.
It's like he will make you cry at the end of the episode. So they're so good at different things that I really enjoyed it. I love Perkins's like cadence, the way he sets up encounters. It's like such a classic DM. You know what I mean? Like it's what you think of when you think of DMs. Like, oh yes, this is a Dungeons & Dragons DM. This is not for a show. This is like this is what a dungeon master is supposed to be. And then I think what I love about Crawford is that he'll take the smallest parts of your character that you mentioned in passing, thinking the DM will never use this, and he'll use it. And his NPCs are just like unmatched. And I have so much respect for that because that's what popularized me a little. To the small extent I've gotten some popularity as DMing, it's like from my NPCs. So I always recognize like an NPC master, and he always makes characters and enemies and foes and friends that I'm like, oh, I want to keep this person in my pocket. Yeah.
I love that. I'm never gonna get Jeremy Crawford as an emotional terrorist out of my head for like the rest of my life.
Watch this series and you're gonna agree with me.
Oh yeah, I bet.
You're gonna be like, you know what? You're gonna be crying and you're gonna be like, that motherfucker.
You're gonna get a random Twitter DM from me on a Wednesday and just be like, you're right.
Happen, because that's how he operates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also what you're saying about Perkins, like that is everything I've heard about playing with him, and like even just as a viewer and someone that like watches his stuff, like I will tell my players whenever I do something like evil as a DM, I will say that was a Perkins move or that was a B. Dave Walters move. And
I think my favorite thing about Perkins, because I'm new to the Perkins table. I feel like my stint on acting started like when they were still rotating DMs, and then Crawford came in.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's my DM. So I'm still new to getting perked. And I'll say that I think my favorite thing about him is that, like, now being on the player side instead of the viewer side, is that I think not to dump on like the fact that shows are streamed a lot now in the whole entertainment industry around D&D. I think that's actually really cool. But I think that this like leads to like DMs kind of behaving like there is a camera there, or performing a lot more. And I think that's why Perkins is a welcome change for me, because it's more like cerebral in that sense. Like, it feels like you're coming into something where the DM is antagonistic in some ways, and that's something that I feel like we're losing in D&D, where it's always like, oh well, the DM isn't there, they're there to facilitate, they're not your enemy. And I kind of like the vibe of like, no, I will be kind and tell you the rules, but I will also tell you when you are in violation of them, and I'm going to challenge you. And I think that's like such a cool way to approach it. I feel like nowadays every DM wants to like be cuddly and be like, you know what, that's a 1, but I guess you can have advantage. And I love, because I'm a rules nerd. So I love a DM that's like, actually, you can only use that feature after the roll is declared, but before you know if it's a success or failure. And I'm like, I was internally saying that. I'm not going to say anything because people scream at me when I do. And that does happen at one point in the series. That's a small spoiler. There is a point where a player almost gets away with something. I'm like, actually.
But I feel like that's perfectly on brand for Certainty. So that's why it works out.
Yeah. I like rules. I like Warhammer. So
yeah.
Yeah, I like rules. I mean, the rule of cool is also a thing. I like that rule too. But I also like being like, you cannot cast 2-leveled spells during your turn.
Well, see, I will say, I'm going to tell chat, we're going to do the giveaway here in a little moment, but I'm continuing this thread where you said the antagonistic thing. And I do think that like for like as Perkins as an example, there's antagonistic DMs. There's like, I built this encounter specifically to go against every single one of your players' abilities. And then there's people who are just like, I just made this. I don't know if you'll survive. And I didn't really take that into consideration. And like, I kind of love that, where it's just like, oh yeah. And then Asmodeus shows up. What are you gonna do? It's like, you could die here. I don't know what you're gonna do. Yeah. For sure. So yeah, chat, Gabe is going to be starting the giveaway here in a little bit. They're going to put a code word in chat. Just put that in and you'll be entered for a chance to win 42 chests of your choice, excluding Bahamut chests. And we'll get that going in just a little bit. But Jasmine, the next thing I want to ask is, because I didn't know that the series was bookended by the live shows until I was talking to Jerry last week. How bad is it that you finished this show and you have to wait to actually finish it at that next PAX?
It sucks. Yeah. Like, waiting to finish it is probably the hardest part. A lot of people asked if it was hard to go back to like go back in time and do a prequel at PAX West after we had shot the series.
Oh, I didn't realize that was after.
Yeah. So like we shot the series and then we did PAX West, and then the series airs after PAX West, and now we're gonna go into Unplugged. And this is the first time we're gonna be chronological in a little bit. And waiting for that has been agony. I was wondering, like, a few people asked, like, oh, but how was it, like, acting like you didn't know each other? And I was like, that wasn't as hard as kind of going in cold, you know, a little bit, because I definitely felt that. I hope it doesn't come across on camera, but I definitely had that like vibe of like, oh gosh, like this is Jim Dark Magic, but not a Jim Dark Magic that knows me. And that, I just ended up using that frustration. And I think Jerry did too, of like certain, and I leaned into it because it's like, I want, like, because it's frustrating for me as a player. Like, this is the first time I get to play with Jim Dark Magic, and it's not my Jim Dark Magic. And so I leaned into that, as I usually do. And so Certainty is very, you know, her vibe coming into this is like, you're not my Uncle Jim. And it's funny because like Omen's vibe coming into this is a little bit the same, but in a different way. And so I think that was harder, was like knowing we're going to be best friends and being good friends with Mike and pretending that I'm not. That was harder to get through than, yeah.
It does seem that Mike is having fun with that bit though, of like, oh yeah, I'm just Jim Dark Magic, but I'm oblivious.
Yeah. 100%.
I love it. And I brought this up with Jerry that we saw in the trailer that like Xavier Woods is gonna show up at some point. Like, I don't know if there's like any other people spoiled or anything. Is there anyone else that we know of that's gonna be joining?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything.
That's fair. Because like I was like, I know there
I don't know if I can confirm or deny.
That's
so
fair.
I'm not sure, so I don't get in trouble.
Yeah, I'm trying to. No, I don't think anyone else was shown, so we're not going to say anything. Yeah, yeah. We don't want Jerry. We don't want Jerry mad at us. No.
I get in trouble a lot. There are times I'm like, oh, I said this. I'm like, was I not supposed to say that? Okay, my bad. Next time I won't.
We'll tell you what. How about we hop over to some viewer questions and see what they've been doing.
Yeah, let's go.
So we're going to start with Rough Rider 1995, who says, question, how was the trip across the pond? I guess that was from, because last week we were going to do the episode and then we said that you were in London. But that was probably for NDA things, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It was for work, for NDA stuff, but I did take some extra days on the other end. To just look around, because it wasn't my first time in the UK, but every time I've been, it was like on my way to someplace else. So this was my first time like actually walking around the English countryside and shopping the vintage shops and all of that, and I had a blast.
Nice.
I really like London. I miss the clotted cream most, I think.
What is that?
It's like this, how to describe it? Someone in chat help me. I believe, okay, technically clotted cream is if you boil unpasteurized milk, I think, because it's equivalent of, I think, Indian Malai. You get the milk fats that like kind of float to the top, and they take that and they turn it into this magnificent substance called clotted cream. And the way I like to have it is like you can spread it on toast or honestly anything you want with a little bit of jam, and it's absolutely delightful. It's so good. It's one of my favorite things in the world, but I believe it's illegal in America.
What?
Yeah, which is why you can't find it here, because it's unpasteurized.
Oh.
I don't know if it's still illegal, but for the longest time, it's hard to sell it here because we only sell pasteurized stuff.
Amazon's giving me a link. I'm gonna look into this later because I'm like, I want to try this, and I'm not going to England anytime soon.
It's so good. Yeah, if you get like we call them English muffins. It's our closest equivalent of a crumpet.
Yeah.
But if you get like an English muffin, I like to put a little bit of butter on it because I'm a farm girl. A little bit of butter, with like clotted cream and then like your favorite preserve. You could even use like orange marmalade right on top. But I had that like every single day I was there. And then they also have, I think it's a chain called Chai Wala, which we have in Bombay in India. The Indian food in UK is kind of goated, but they serve like street food and chai like until like 2 a.m. in the morning. It's wild. So this was also a mainstay while I was jet lagged, was going and getting my 1 a.m. cup of masala chai like every single day. That towards the end of my stay in like East London is specifically where I stayed, like they knew me and they would just start making my chai as soon as I walked in. They were like, "Oh, is that Punjabi girl that likes the extra spicy chai on it?" Like every time. So that was really fun. But yes, long story short, I loved it. I loved my trip over there.
It's fantastic. The Lurking Writer, who I believe is from the UK, so I'm pretty sure was talking about clotted cream as you were, said, question, I'm one of the more vocal Oxventure fans in this community.
Oh, cool.
How much fun did you have at PAX East getting to play on stage with them in Play Fight?
Oh my God, I had so much fun. They were such a welcoming, amazing crowd. And I think my only regret is I came into it very much like, oh, I'm gonna not do a Scottish accent, but a dwarvish accent and be ridiculous about it. And so many people were upset by it.
What?
That's a horrible accent. This is why I hate when they have guests.
Oh my God.
They're, you know, like they try too hard to be funny. So I was like, oh, that's my only regret is like probably don't do the bit about the dwarvish accent with a bunch of people from the UK. Probably not the right moment to do that bit.
No, you know what? If I ever get to play with them, I'm doing it.
Because it was like, you know, I've got me axe. But the thing is like, that's not a Scottish accent.
No, that's
Gimli. That's a bit.
Yes.
You know? It's just like if I'm like, do you like Dags? That's just a reference to a Guy Ritchie movie. That's not actually me doing any type of accent. You know?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, the Oxford.
And they're like, oh, she's trying to be funny. I don't think they understand. I'm just a nerd. I almost dropped another F-bomb, but I didn't.
I'm proud of you.
I will do very weird things for the bit, you know, like. Which is probably how I ended up on Dimension 20. I like a good bit, and I will lean into a good bit. I'm the person that laughs at like the, you know, do you know my friend, Biggest Dickus? Like I'm the person that laughs at that.
But I am too, so that's, you know what?
Like, I like Monty Python, and I thought a bunch of UK people would also like Monty Python, but I was wrong. So next time, I won't do my bad accent, okay?
You heard it here first. UK hates Monty Python.
Cancel. Psh, that's okay. They already hated me.
Hey. Star Chaser 43 says, question, would you want to DM an episode of AC Inc. if it was possible?
I am.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, one of the Kickstarter stretch goals that we hit is that if we hit that goal, I would DM the All DMs table. And we haven't recorded it yet, but I have so many ideas.
Oh, I bet.
I have like 7. I'm so excited. I get to DM for Chris Perkins, Jeremy Crawford, Mike, and Jerry. Like,
heck yeah.
People and me. Because I'm your favorite DM's favorite DM. So yeah, I'm excited. I
cannot wait to see that. That is, and also like best.
This is like on my like bucket list because I've DM'd for Abria and Brennan.
Mm-hmm.
I've DM'd for B Dave. I've way back using a different system. I DM'd for Matt. I don't know if that counts.
It counts.
But Perkins and Crawford, as of yet, have not. I haven't popped their cherries yet. So now my list is like,
yeah.
Same with Jerry. I've never DM'd for Jerry or Mike. Actually, now that I think about it. So now I'm like collecting them like Infinity Stones, and so
I love it.
I'm very excited.
We will be keeping an eye out for that game because I'm so excited to see that. This is just question. I don't this was my fault. I didn't grab who this was. I'm sorry, person. You'll know who you are. Question: If I was to I think this was Cassius. Cassius, this is your question. If I understand correctly, the rule is, quote, only cantrips after bonus action spells, but otherwise you can use as many leveled spells as you have regular actions for. High action surge. Is that correct?
So I actually asked Jeremy Crawford about this because when I was playing Certainty, she can action surge and do that. And from his clarification, it was that the only time you follow the rules for casting spells on a bonus action, I just remember him saying you can cast two spells on one turn, but one of them has to be a cantrip because cantrips are spells. And if you read the rules as written, that's where people tend to get confused because they think cantrips are something separate than spells. And so if you look at it, it says you can't cast, the rules as written are you can't cast another spell during the same turn, except for a cantrip with a casting time of one action.
Yeah.
If you cast a spell on a bonus action.
Yeah. I think that sounds right. I'll be honest, this is one reason why I'm always just like, just cast whatever spell you want, whatever.
I'd have to double check the book, but I believe like the one of the lines is that specifically is if you cast a spell as a bonus action, you can't cast another spell on the same turn except for a cantrip that has a casting time of an action. And if there's a way for you to cast it as an action, I think you can, but you just can't cast 2 leveled spells on a turn. That was I remember me and Jeremy had a long conversation about it, which is why I think with Certainty action surges, a lot of the time you'll see her cast, I think back in those days, what was that weird Shadow Blade and attack with it in the same turn. Because I think normally you can't do that unless you action surge.
Yep. I have a character right now on stream that has that, and I'm like, well, I did a cool thing. Here you go.
If I remember correctly, I think it takes an action to cast it. Yeah. So then you can action surge and smack with it. And with her College of, I think it was Swords Bard, she could actually attack twice per action. So it ended up being like a really cool combination, which is how I built her. But I'm not an expert on the rules. It's much better to tweet Jeremy Crawford about that than ask me.
It's fair. Go to the sage himself. Now, I have a warlock that does have the Shadow Blade. The way that I got around it is that his packed weapon is a dancing blade, so he just throws it out to attack as a bonus action and then summons the other blade.
That's amazing.
So it's that I will say, like, that is one of the really fun things about like loving rules, though, is that like finding those little workarounds to things of like, okay, it says I can't do this, but how can I do this?
Yeah. True. Yeah.
Well, Jasmine, we're actually towards the end of our time here because we got another show coming up after this that we gotta get going for. But thank you so much for talking with me today. This was an absolute blast.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thank you for having me, and I hope that those of you who get Certainty on Idle Champions enjoy her. I loved the like going through the like all the details that were added. I don't know where y'all came up with that.
What do you mean? Do you mean like the attacks and stuff, or?
Yeah, like just the way she works in the lineup, and then like even the details on her cloak. I was very heartwarmed because I made and designed that cloak. So
really?
Yeah. So seeing like all the details, I was like, okay, like you.
Our art team does not mess around. They are dedicated.
I was very impressed. Like all the little bits, like including the tassels around the everything is there, which I was like very pleased with because she's perfect. I love her. She's amazing.
That is one of my favorite things, that like the Idle Champion style it's not too far off of like how most of the ACK Inc. characters are drawn, so it's really cool to like see them in that slightly different style and moving around.
Yeah. I think the biggest sort of spoiler I have that I'll leave you with before we go offline is that I did get an advance copy of the Kickstarter backer poster for ACK Inc., and which is drawn by Mike Krahulik, and Mike's art for Certainty is like,
oh my gosh,
I almost wept when I saw it. It was so good.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so I have a copy signed by the entire cast that's framed on my wall that I would show you, but that might actually get me in trouble.
Yeah. Let's not do that. Folks will see it. Well, Jasmine, if people wanted to find you and what you do on the interwebs, where could they do so?
I'm that Browns girl everywhere. I know, very simple, but literally TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X, Twitter. I don't know. That Browns girl everywhere.
Got that branding. It's important. Well, again, thank you so much, Jasmine. You can unlock Certainty right now in game. And unlike when I lied to you in a recording last week because we thought that was going up this week, but don't worry about that. You can do it now. So go unlock Certainty in Isle Champions and get the whole ACK Inc. team into formation. Don't worry about mechanics. Don't worry if there's synergy. Just do it. It's fun. That's gonna do it for this week's episode of Idle Insight. So until next week, take care of yourself. I have to find the button to actually get us to go. Okay, bye.